This week on The Watchman, welcome to Gaza. Over my shoulder, just half a mile away, is where Hamas lives and breathes. And this week, we are in the Israeli community of Nahal Oz with top Middle East and global security expert Avi Melamed to get the inside story of what Hamas, Iran, Islamic Jihad, and ISIS are doing in Gaza, why it matters to Israel and to you. Get the inside story this week on The Watchman, only with Christians United for Israel, and only right here on TBN. And welcome to The Watchman. We are standing on Israel's border with Gaza. Just a half a mile away from where I am standing right now is where Hamas rules a brutal Islamist dictatorship. Over the past 10 years, look, Hamas has waged instigated three wars against Israel, the most recent being in 2014. We've seen thousands, folks, literally thousands of rockets fired from Gaza by Hamas and Palestinian Islamic Jihad and other terror groups into Israeli communities like where I'm standing right now, Nahal Oz. At the same time, we know that Hamas and Islamic Jihad continue to dig those terror tunnels. And the goal, folks, imagine this, picture this, the goal is for Hamas terrorists to tunnel under the border into Israeli communities and emerge in someone's living room, in a kindergarten, kidnap or murder Israeli civilians. That is the goal. But the good news, and we're going to hear about it today from our good friend, Watchman contributor, Middle East and global security expert, Avi Melamed, the good news is that Israel is fighting back. They are counteracting these Hamas tunnels. You're going to get the inside story and an up-close look today from here on the Gaza border about how Israel is countering the Hamas tunnel threat. And much more than that, we're going to give you a broader overview of what's going on in this tiny but deadly coastal strip called Gaza today. Folks, this is one of the hottest hotspots in the Middle East, and it is heating up by the day. So let's go right now to our good friend, Avi Melamed. Well, Avi, here we are once again. Welcome back to The Watchman, my friend. We were with you on the Lebanon border, looking at the Hezbollah threat, on the Israeli-Syrian border, overlooking the Syrian civil war. Now we are on another very hot border. We're just a few yards away from Gaza, where Hamas lives and breathes. And Avi, this area is heating up. There's construction going on. There's drones overhead. We're in an agricultural area right now. People might hear some sprinklers. A lot of things going on, a lot of buzz here on the Gaza border. What's the latest here?
Over there, very close to the border, you could see the Israeli bulldozers that are working. This is part of the massive construction that Israel is now engaged in, building this underground massive obstacle that is supposed to block the intrusive tunnels coming from Gaza Strip to the Israeli territory.
Yeah, Avi, those Hamas terror tunnels we saw in 2014, the last conflict, wow. Hamas trying to tunnel in under Gaza into Israeli communities.
Yes, Hamas, Islamic Jihad, the Palestinian organizations are tunneling in under the border into the Israeli territory. And the most recent news in that context is that seemingly Israel has come with some very practical answers to the challenge of the tunnels, which increase the pressure on the other side, because for Hamas and Islamic Jihad, tunnels are sort of a strategic weapon.
The suicide bombing threat from Hamas was big about a decade ago. The rockets obviously ongoing. Now the tunnels, they keep trying to up the ante, it seems like. What's the strength level of Hamas right now?
When Hamas took over Gaza Strip 10 years ago, a little bit more than that, actually he dragged Gaza Strip from one catastrophe to another, to the point where today in 2017, actually Hamas said to the Palestinian Authority, the same Palestinian Authority that Hamas kicked out from Gaza Strip 10 years ago.
Brutally in 2007.
Killing hundreds of his brothers.
Yeah.
Hamas today in 20 17, 2018 actually says to the Palestinian Authority, well guys, here are the keys. You should run Gaza Strip. You should take care of the lack of employment, the lack of services, the lack of housing solutions.
Electricity.
The electricity, the damaged infrastructure that is all caused because of Hamas' radical way. And we, Hamas, we will stick to do what we know the best, and this is to initiate violence.
So, Avi, what you're saying is what Hamas is saying to Mahmoud Abbas and the Palestinian Authority is, hey guys, look, you handle governance and we'll just handle jihad. We'll keep our rockets, our missiles, our weapons, our tunnels, and we'll handle the military end of things.
Correct.
Hamas will not disarm.
Oh, no, I don't think so.
Yeah.
And you're very accurate. And it reminds us with a very similar model in a place called Lebanon.
Yep.
We are familiar, too familiar, with what happened in Lebanon in the context of the Hezbollah. The same model, remember, Hezbollah is Hamas' role model. You could say like it's the older brother, it's the mentor of Hamas. And actually what Hamas would like to do in Gaza Strip is to exactly duplicate the Hezbollah Lebanese style, meaning there should be a civil government that should take responsibility for everyday life, while Hamas, in his view, will be exempted from any responsibility, and he will be engaged only with initiating military rounds against Israel.
The resistance.
The resistance. There is only one challenge as far as Hamas is concerned, and that is the fact that the Palestinian president, Mahmoud Abbas, is not a fool. Yeah. And he says to Hamas, I know that you would like to duplicate the Hezbollah model in Gaza Strip, but this is no go. The Islamic Emirate that Hamas established in 2007 in Gaza Strip is a story of a failure, an utter failure, because of Hamas' violent and extreme ideology and behavior.
Total disaster.
The recent reconciliation that was brokered by the Egyptian president and the Egyptian security and military leadership is very significant in the sense that neither the Palestinian Authority nor Hamas would like to be perceived or viewed as the one who are responsible for the collapse of that reconciliation.
So what you're saying, Avi, is that Hamas is up against the wall here a little bit. They're being squeezed in a lot of different directions. But then you have Iran, as we said, the leader of the resistance in the region, obviously, against Israel. What role is Iran playing right now in terms of Hamas and funding Hamas and supporting Hamas and stirring things up here?
Well, Eric, it's interesting. You probably remember that following the war in Syria, at some point in 2012, Hamas detached itself from the Iranian and the Syrian Hug, and Iran retaliated by cutting support for Hamas civil projects, not Hamas military power as a Din al-Qassam brigade.
There was a rift between Hamas and Iran. Iran had been funding Hamas, then there was a kind of a falling out there in 2012 around that area.
Correct. And there was an ongoing attempt of Hamas at some point to go back to the Iranian hug. The Iranian regime does not give a free meal, and one of the conditions of the Iranian regime for any kind of reconciliation was that Khaled Mash'al, the previous chair of Hamas political bureau, will be no longer in office. He's no longer in office.
That's right.
Now there is a new guy, Ismail Haniyeh, that used to be the prime minister of Hamas in the Gaza Strip, and his deputy, Salah al-Aruri, that is a very senior person in Hamas military establishment, used to be based in Turkey, then he moved to Beirut. He is the one that's leading this whole rapprochement and reconciliation towards the Iranians. This guy, al-Aruri, just recently said the following statement. Listen carefully. He said, Hamas, Iran and Hezbollah has great relationships, and he emphasized that Hamas will never stand by the side of any factor that will damage Arab and Muslim communities. Here is an open question. Iran and Hezbollah are butchering Syrian Sunnis and Arabs, including, by the way, Palestinians in Syria. How do you reconcile this gap between the definition?
Right now, we're going to look at the human impact of living along Hamastan, the Gaza border. Avi, lead the way to Nahal Oz.
Let's go.
Let's go. Avi will be back with us a bit later in the show, but up next, what's it like to live and raise a family just half a mile from Hamas? After the break, we speak to the spokesperson from this great Israeli community of Nahal Oz to hear her powerful story. Do not move. The Bible is clear. The God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob made an everlasting covenant with the land and the people of Israel. They are the apple of his eye. But Israel faces enemies on all sides who want to annihilate every Jewish man, woman, and child.
God gave us a voice and a responsibility, a biblical mandate to bless Israel and to speak up for Zion's sake. Find out how and when you can order my free book, Why Christians Should Support Israel. It will teach you the Bible facts of the power and prosperity of God that comes to you when you read this text.
You'll learn why Israel has a biblical and historic claim to the land. Call Christians United for Israel at the number on your screen or go to cufi.org/book and we'll send you your free book from Pastor John Hagee. If you won't speak up for Israel, who will? Well, Yael, we are about a half a mile from Gaza in the beautiful Israeli community of Nahal Oz. You've been here, you were born here, you've lived here for some time. Tell us about some of the challenges that you face being located this close to, unfortunately, where Hamas lives and breathes.
This community was established back in 1951. And it wasn't easy from the beginning, not for me, but for the pioneers who built it. Because the existence was always there. But ever since 2000s, we have rockets that fell in our community. The first one was at the end of 2000s.
The rockets just a pretty steady barrage.
At the beginning, it was like a homemade missile that shot from Gaza Strip. But ever since, it was more and more. And stronger missiles. And you're trying to live a normal life over here. I have my own 3 kids. I have a lot of friends here, a lot of kids in the kibbutz and elderly and, a community. And it's quite hard when someone is shooting through you all the time.
Yael, a half a mile away. You were born here, and you've lived a good chunk of your life here in Nahal Oz, so you saw all the good days.
I saw the good days. I used to walk side by side with them in our fields. I used to travel to Gaza Strip. Today, my kids will not believe that that was my childhood here.
Well, Yael, you can't get a much better vantage point than what we have right now in this watchtower, just a half mile. We're overlooking Gaza right now. Look, how many families live in Nahal Oz? Tell us about daily life here.
The population here have been through a change because we used to the missiles that come in from Gaza Strip, and we had 3 military operations already. And when there is a military operation, the situation here becomes really, really tough.
3 military operations in the past decade alone, by the way, against Hamas and Gaza.
2008, 2012, and 2014. Yeah. Protective Edge was a really difficult summer. It was 8 weeks of war. For most of Israel, it was a little bit less, but it took us time to go back home.
You were on the front lines. This was 2014.
Yes, but the moment that the military operation starts, the families that have kids are not staying here. And we walk away inside Israel like refugees in our own country.
So you had to evacuate?
Yeah. It's not safe to stay here. It's too traumatized for us and for the kids. So the pioneers who built this place 60 years ago, staying here and watch the kibbutz for us. And when we came back here after 8 weeks and after we lost a child over here in Nahal Oz at the last week of the war, 17 families decided they're not coming back. The population of the kibbutz went down from 400 people to 300 people. And the crisis here was huge because we have to rebuild the community, deal with the grief that we were all dealing with.
Maybe attract some new families.
Exactly. And then you have to think about the next step. But you have to take care of yourself before you turn to new families to arrive. Lucky for us, we find new families. Today, the population of the kibbutz is back to 440. We have 3 projects for young adult over here because we know that young adult can make sure that the community goes on. But it wasn't easy. We are still recovering. And we are making almost everyday effort to make sure that this community will continue and succeed. And by the same time, I'm happy to say that we choose to stay here.
Well, Yael, as an American, I want to thank you for standing strong for us and for your convictions and in the land where you're supposed to be and in Nahal Oz. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks again to Yael for joining us. And folks, the people of Nahal Oz are strong. They will not flinch in the face of terror, but we have to keep them in our prayers. Well, up next, Avi Melamed is back to share with us how Israel is using cutting-edge technology to neutralize those Hamas terror tunnels. Folks, you will not want to miss this. Stick around.
With over 3.5 million members, Christians United for Israel is the largest pro-Israel organization in America. And for Zion's sake, we will not remain silent. We won't stand for the lies and political attacks that threaten Israel's safety and the future of the Jewish people in their God-given homeland. We want you to join us in this sacred movement.
The Jewish people are not alone. Christians United for Israel, I want to thank you for standing up for Israel. I want to thank you for standing up and being counted. May God bless you all. Thank you.
Israel needs you to take a stand. Join Christians United for Israel. Make your voice heard and be remembered as a defender of Israel, the apple of God's eye.
Avi, we are standing on top of a watchtower just a half a mile from Gaza, and there's some very interesting, I would say, positive activity going on here right now. We talked earlier about those terror tunnels being dug into communities like this where we're standing right now, but Israel is fighting back against those tunnels. What do we see here right now, and what is Israel doing to negate that tunnel threat?
In the last couple of years, one of the major weapons, sort of speaking, developed by the Islamic Jihad in Gaza Strip, by Hamas, is the intrusive tunnels. Taking advantage of the fact that the soil here is very soft, you could scoop the soil, roughly speaking, they have been digging tunnels crossing from the Gaza territory into the Israeli territory, right now, for example, located in one of the communities. And as far as Hamas and Islamic Jihad concerned, this is one of the most, if not the most ultimate strategic weapons that is supposed to be used for either kidnapping Israeli soldiers, Israeli settlers.
Yeah. Talk about psychological terror, Avi. Just picture that, you know, you're in your living room with your kids and there's a tunnel dug under your house and a terrorist pops out.
Right, right. This is definitely one of the most terrifying aspects. Israel has been struggling with this challenge, reminding you in 2006, an Israeli soldier, Gilad Shalit, was abducted through a tunnel that was dug from Gaza Strip into the Israeli territory.
Yeah.
Seemingly, it seems like Israel has come recently with some very practical solutions and answer to the challenge of the tunnels. To the best of my knowledge, it's unprecedented, okay? And actually what we see right now is part of one of the major tools Israel now deploys in order to counter the challenge of the intrusive tunnels coming from Gaza Strip to the Israeli territory. And actually what you're looking at is a major, massive obstacle, physical obstacle built by Israel, which is a massively concrete wall, about 20 feet above the ground, and it's going down deep beneath the ground, something like 200 feet.
Wow.
And it's going to be parallel all along the line of the Israeli-Gaza border, and that wall of cement that is going to be installed. Actually, right now, what you're looking at is part of the work that is going on right now on the ground.
It's amazing. We see the construction right now. It's being built before our very eyes.
Correct. You could see the sand platform all along in front of the cranes. You could see the sand platform. Yeah. This sand is scooped out, and it's actually used to shelter the workers who are now working in laying that huge obstacle, because there has been a couple of snipers shooting from Gaza Strip trying to deter and to stop the works on the ground. They have failed.
Right here, just a half mile from where we're standing.
That is correct. So this huge, massive obstacle is very interesting, by the way, because it's not only a passive wall. As part of that obstacle, that wall will include cages made of iron, and they are going to be installed within the wall, under the ground, and they will be with a lot of detectors.
Wow.
So you can have a proactive, advanced technological means that, in addition to the passive barrier, will give Israel a pre-alert if somebody is trying to continue and to dig under the ground.
Yeah, someone comes in with those shovels digging those tunnels. Avi, this is absolutely amazing. Cutting-edge technology. Israel's going to block these tunnels. That is the hope, and it looks like they're well on their way. I think back to the 2014 conflict, Avi, where the terror tunnels, that was kind of the big takeaway. We know about the rockets coming from Gaza for well over a decade, but the terror tunnels seemed like a new step up. Now, Israel adjusted to the rockets with Iron Dome, obviously, the anti-missile system, and now the adjustment with this massive barrier. Pretty amazing.
It is amazing. I mean, think about it. I mean, the challenge of tunnels, by the way, is a challenge that has been known worldwide. The United States, for example, in the war in Vietnam, had a very serious challenge with the whole tunnels digged in the Vietnam. To the best of my knowledge, up until now, no technological sufficient means were found or innovated in order to come with answer to that question. Israel apparently came up with some very sophisticated technological means and capacities that are actually seemingly neutralizing what is supposed to be one of the most, if not the most, strategic weapon Hamas and Islamic Jihad have in their possession, which is, of course, as you could understand, borders Hamas and Islamic Jihad. By the way, we know, based upon the excavations of tunnels and studying of tunnels, some of these tunnels are enormously sophisticated. Millions and millions and millions of dollars have been spent by Hamas and Islamic Jihad to dig these tunnels. We know there is an Iranian know-how involved in the building of these tunnels. Some of these tunnels include ventilation, inner communication systems, horizontal elevations, and elevators. It's amazing. Some of these tunnels have been...
Yeah, this is not some rudimentary tunnel. They're big business, first of all, in Gaza, and secondly, some of them have paneling, lighting, even more than that, as you said, Avi.
Yes, that is correct. So it just shows you the amount and the huge amount of resources spent by Hamas, Islamic Jihad, in digging those tunnels.
And so what that means, Avi, is the tunnel enterprise is a major, major part of not only the Hamas Islamic Jihad military strategy against Israel, but their economic well-being. And to shut it down is a major victory for Israel.
Oh yes, that is very accurate. You know, Eric, in fact, we could identify 3 different sets of tunnels. There are smuggling tunnels from Sinai Peninsula to the Gaza Strip, used for the smuggling of commodities, weapons, whatever. The second set is tunnels digged inside the Gaza Strip. We estimate that there are in Gaza Strip hundreds of miles of tunnels dug under the ground as part of the military structure of Hamas of Islamic Jihad inside the Gaza Strip.
It's an underground city.
It's an underground city, literally speaking. It's an underground city. And the third set is the intrusive tunnels, the one that are penetrating from the Gaza area to the Israeli area, the one that we talked about.
Where we're standing right now, a community like Nahal Oz. Avi, the shifting sands of the Middle East, and no one explains it better. Thank you so much, my friend. And the book, Inside the Middle East?
The book Inside the Middle East is now celebrating almost 2 years since it was published. And here is something very interesting. As of now, all the predictions I made in the book are accurate.
No surprise. AviMelamed.com, Inside the Middle East. Avi, thank you so much. It was amazing. Thank you for that incredible overview of the situation here in Israel's south. Thanks, Avi.
Long before he was the Vice President of the United States, Mike Pence was a friend to Christians United for Israel. Now, he's helping us make Israel stronger and her people safer.
Pastor John Hagee, I thank you for your leadership on behalf of this nation and the Jewish state of Israel. And today, through Christians United for Israel, more than 3.3 million believers have raised their voices, have not been silent in support of Israel. And you can be heard in every city and town across America and in every office on Capitol Hill. And rest assured, the man down the street at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue hears you too. I have faith that with God's help, and with the men and women gathered here, the best days for Israel and for America are yet to come.
Don't miss next year's summit. Join the movement and register now for the 2018 CUFI Washington Summit.
And welcome back to The Watchman. We are wrapping up from here on the Israel-Gaza border. What a great overview we had today, folks, from Avi Melamed about what Iran, Hamas, of course, Islamic Jihad, ISIS, some of the world's worst actors are doing just a half-mile away from where I am standing right now. But when you think about it, one of the positive things in the past 10 years, and Avi laid it out for us today, is how Israel has always been able to counteract and neutralize every new threat that comes from Gaza. Think of Iron Dome, the anti-missile system, which has helped to largely neutralize those Hamas rockets. And now, as we saw today up close, this new cutting-edge Israeli technology building a huge barrier that goes deep underground to block those Hamas tunnels. Now, that is all great. But our team at Christians United for Israel believes that Israel's ultimate advantage over its enemies is described in Psalm 121, which says, "The God of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps," and God himself watches over this land, Israel. And our team at Christians United for Israel invites you to join our movement. Folks, we are nearly 4 million strong, and we are growing every day, standing in the gap for God's land and God's people. For Zion's sake, we will not remain silent. And each week here on The Watchman Show, we will continue to bring you the cutting edge, on the ground truth from places like the Israel-Gaza border. Thanks for joining us this week from one of the hottest hotspots in the world. Until next time, God bless you. And remember, never hold your peace.